You win with people. Woody Hayes often said that, and Gene Smith agrees. People have been at the core of his leadership style throughout his 19 years as athletics director at The Ohio State University. To Gene, the job has always been about others, serving them, listening to them, giving them what they need to be successful, and Ohio State has benefited from that focus on people. The Buckeyes have excelled in sports, in the classroom, and in the community since Smith began his tenure as the university's 8th athletic director in March of 2005. And as Ohio State stacked up national championship titles in multiple sports, it also established itself as a leader in athletics administration, during a time when collegiate sports was rapidly changing. I'm Amanda DeJong, and you're listening to Now at Ohio State. We talk with researchers, innovators, and bold thinkers who look at our world, see what the real challenges are, and create the solutions that people need now. Name an NCAA or Big Ten committee, and Gene Smith probably served or led that group at some time, all the while overseeing one of the nation's largest athletic departments, more than 500 employees, more than 1,000 athletes in 36 varsity sports. So yeah, at age 67, Gene's definitely ready for some well-earned rest and relaxation when he retires on July 1st. Gene sits down with Ard Todd Jones and looks back on what it's been like to lead Buckeye athletics for nearly 2 decades. The people who made the many good times great, the people who helped him navigate the occasional rough seas, and the people who would lead the Buckeyes into the future.
Gene, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Todd. Good to be here.
I must say you have that retirement is beckoning glow.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I had a nice workout this morning, so I feel good.
That's great. That's great. Nearly 2 decades at Ohio State are coming to an end. I mean, have you been reflecting a lot as we come down the stretch?
You know, it's in moments. It's when things occur that I take that moment to reflect. There's been a lot of events since I made my announcement, and everything has been my last. And so it's kind of weird, the last time driving my golf cart at a football game. And the guys, when I delivered the cart at the end of the season, they were like, this is the last time you're delivering your cart. So everything's been my last, and periodically, based upon that event, I reflect.
Well, what comes to mind?
Well, obviously, most recently, our women's ice hockey team winning the national championship in New Hampshire. I was there.
And they've done it! The Ohio State Buckeyes are your national champions.
Just standing by the ice after the celebration, looking at them on the ice, continuing to celebrate. It's one of those moments where you get slightly emotional because it's going to be your last opportunity to see that level of celebration from that particular team. Or most recently, men's basketball team lost to Georgia in the NIT, a very close game, great crowd, unbelievable Buckeye Nation.
Akara sets the screen, battle for the win. Oh, Georgia survives.
But being in the locker room with them, and it was my last time in the locker room with the basketball team. And so those moments cause me to pause and reflect and think about the blessings that I've had.
When you think about the totality of everything since 2005, what do you think about? How would you sum it up when you think about it in a reflective mode?
I think about what we've been fortunate to create here. When I came in 2005, there was a different industry, a lot of challenges here at Ohio State. But one of the things that struck me was we had good coaches, but we really weren't as competitive in the classroom as we needed to be. I think we had 324 scholar athletes, those student athletes who maintain a 3.0 GPA. And changing the culture where we recruited young people who were obviously athletically talented, but also wanted to be as competitive in the classroom. And so we'll recognize 809 scholar athletes this year. And when I look at the women's ice hockey team in that moment of celebration, all 23 of those young ladies are scholar athletes. And so we've come a long way. I think about those kids. I really do, Todd. I think I have memories of a lot of different student athletes over the years and how they performed overall as individuals.
It always gets back to them. And we're going to talk more about that in this interview because I think that's always been at the core of your philosophy. It's about the student athlete.
It is. It is.
You think about 19 years almost here at Ohio State. You've seen a lot of celebrations, a lot of victories. People think football, but it's been across the board. You've had a lot of different sports moments. What comes to mind for you in terms of just on the court, in the arena, on the field? What are the high points for your tenure?
There's so many, Todd. I can't narrow it down to one. I've thought about that often, but I will have to say a special moment was our wrestling program winning the national championship, and the aggregate of those individuals. It's an individual sport, but it's a team sport. Seeing Kyle Snyder and Miles Martin and Tomasello,
Logan Stiebler,
and all those guys. It was an unbelievable experience to be there next to the mat, watching them perform and hoisting that trophy. And we have to get back to that. That was special. Obviously, winning the football championship under Urban and being in Dallas, beating Oregon.
Ohio State national champions for the 8th time as they defeat Oregon 42-20.
Beating Alabama before that, which was a phenomenal experience. There's just been a number of them. Women's swimming, they won 4 consecutive conference championships. This year would have been their 5th, but they were half a point away from winning it all. There's just so many.
What do you take away from that personally when you see athletes and teams celebrating a championship?
Well, that means that we did our job. We try and create an environment for our student athletes to be successful in a number of different ways, athletically and academically and development-wise. But to your question on the athletic side, when they win and have those celebrations, it's just a beautiful thing. You have a sense of pride. You have a sense of ownership in that performance. And not just me, but, all of our support staff, our academic people, our strength coaches, our trainers, our nutritionists, everyone has a sense of pride. And I remember in the last Olympics, we had 26 Olympians, and we celebrated them, brought them home and celebrated them. And a lot of people were there, a lot of the staff were there to recognize them. And in the Shoemaker facility, we have a wall of Olympians, and their names were putting up on the wall, and that sense of pride, watching, their names be unveiled was really cool. And everyone had some feelings around that.
There's good and bad in everything, the way things flow.
Yeah.
And at times there's been some challenges during your tenure too.
Yep.
You think back to 2011, Jim Tressel, had to resign.
Right.
Different things have come up over the years.
Right.
When you think about those moments and the challenges of that, what do you think about from your perspective as being the athletic director who had to manage that?
Yeah, there's been so many those type of things. 2011 was a challenging year. I love Jim Tressel. He's such an iconic individual. But at the end of the day, mistakes were made. And it's my job as the leader to address those mistakes. And I've done it throughout the year with different individuals in the athletic department, different student athletes, and some fan behavior I've done that with. And first and foremost, you got to go to your values. You never sacrifice your values. And it's integrity, it's respect, those type of things you fall back on. I can't remember where I actually made a decision on my own, around anything. We try and create an environment of inclusiveness. And so all the intellectual knowledge that we all have, we're the total sum of our experiences in life. So I'd like to bring all that into a room. And all of us have different experiences. So throw the issue in the middle of the table and let's talk about it. Because someone with a different experience than mine may have a different view, and that's helpful. We all have blind spots, so I need other people to give me advice. So in all those situations, the 2011 and the Zach Smith, the one in women's basketball. I mean, there's different ones over my years. My teammates have given great insight in how we should respond. My mom used to say, through the eyes of others, you see yourself. And I believe that. So you got to empower the environment and the people in the environment to be honest and forthright.
In times of turmoil, when there's conflict and problems to deal with, what kind of advice would you have for a leader in any business? What type of leadership qualities do you think would help that person and their team navigate those tough times?
First thing is to hit pause. Hit pause. So many times you see in leadership when someone hits a crisis, they react, and in a lot of cases overreact. So first of all, hit pause and settle yourself and determine what is the real issue, and then ultimately put the team in place to help you deal with that particular issue, because it might be different people and different talents and skills, different experiences based upon the issue. Think about all the talent and skill around you that can help you navigate the challenge in front of you, and let those individuals debate and have the conversation and talk about strategies. Now, there's some issues where you're going to have to move faster than others because you're a public entity, depending upon the situation. You know, you think about the bridge situation in Baltimore, Maryland. The media's clamoring for responses. In those situations, you still don't forget your strategy to come up with the answers, but you gotta be transparent. And so every case is different, but I think the pause button is the best advice I can give somebody.
And hitting the pause button isn't easy. I mean,
No.
look at the environment that we all live in. Speed, fast,
Right.
now,
Yeah.
do it.
Social media. Yeah. No, you that's where leadership matters the most, is calming the environment and not letting things get out of control. And if you can say something in order to tamp down the social media or the firestorm, you say something. But it's got to be on point.
You mentioned people. When you think about leadership, what does it mean for you to have people leadership?
Everyone is a leader within themselves and where they are. You know, everyone that works in facilities, that works in event management, regardless of age or experience, they're a leader. And so what we try and do is create an environment where everybody understands that. If you're in an environment where you're operating on your own, managing a particular task, you want to do that excellently, which is one of our values, excellence. And so when no one's watching, you perform. And that's leadership, is if you can create an environment where everyone at all times, regardless of what they're doing, regardless of the task, they execute at the highest level. That's what it's all about.
So when nobody's looking, what are you doing?
That's it. I mean, it's easier when people are watching us to perform at our best. But when nobody's watching, are you bringing it?
An emphasis on people is why Ohio State created the Eugene D. Smith Leadership Institute in 2019. The institute was set up to provide leadership, character, and career development for all Buckeye student athletes. Its goal? To prepare them for life after sports. Already, their lives as college athletes are much different than when Gene began his administrative career at Eastern Michigan in 1986. He's seen a lot of changes during 4 decades as an athletics director, with stints at Iowa State and Arizona State. But nothing can match the ongoing upheaval of recent years. A Big Ten conference with members on the West Coast, student athletes getting paid for their use of name, image, and likeness, their possible status as employees, and the right to unionize, being argued in federal courts, transfer portals. Gene offers his insight into these tumultuous times for college sports.
When you came here in 2005, there weren't even iPhones then.
Yeah, I know. That's weird, isn't it?
Think about that. Think
weird.
about that. The world has changed in so many ways. And really, obviously, college athletics is in the midst of change.
Yes.
NIL, transfer portal, on and on. How has that changed the job of athletic director? How is the job different now for your successor, Ross Bjork, than it was for you when you got here in 2005?
You learned as a leader to deal with change. Sometimes you can actually see around corners and see the change coming. So you kind of knew what to prepare for. And you create an environment where, everyone that we work with understands how we're going to behave around change management. And now with the aggregate of issues, and you mentioned just a few, it's very difficult to plan for that change that's coming. We know it's coming. We have some idea of what it might be, but we don't have a solid view of the model. There will be a new model for intercollegiate athletics in the near future. So for Ross, he has to continue to stay connected nationally, continue to be aligned with our president and our coaches, get feedback from athletes. And so when he has some clarity on what it will be, he's ready. So I think that's the most important thing.
The landscape of college athletics is erupting with change. How would you describe the era that we're in now with college athletics?
The model's going to be significantly different, and we have to get used to it. We have to embrace it. I've always told my teammates, change is always going to happen to us or for us. So we have to embrace that change. If we don't have a way to control it, we got to embrace it and adjust and create an environment where the Ohio State University Athletic Department stays at the top of the pyramid. And so with NIL, with the transfer portal, I think the reality is that at some point the compensation model for student athletes is going to change. The scholarship model of room, board, books, tuition, cost of attendance, there's going to be something else. I don't know what they're going to call it. But there will be a different level of compensation for X number of sports. It won't be all sports. So it's just going to change.
Well, this isn't easy for fans sometimes.
No.
You hear it, like
exactly.
This isn't the college athletics that I grew up with.
Right.
What advice do you have for fans, for alumni of Ohio State who look at this world from their perspective and see what they see?
Yeah, we all got to change, man. We got to embrace it and accept it. The ecosystem has changed that we serve. The reality is there's been a lot of money in intercollegiate athletics. People are paid high salaries in intercollegiate athletics. So the argument that the student athletes should get a piece of that, I don't disagree with. The media rights, the corporate sponsorships, the ticket sales, we need to look at it, how it's done, and accept that it's going to be done. Because I think what's important for all of us traditionalists is how it's done. It still has to be tethered to education. You look at the freshmen when they come in, they're 17, 18 years old. They don't know which way is up yet. And so we have to keep that in our core part. But we have to come up with a system that's a revenue share type of system. And I'm okay with that.
What about the idea of employees? Can student athletes someday be an employee of Ohio State, and how would you feel about that?
Yeah, I just don't see that. And I don't see that we need to get there. I hear this and see the conversations, but the core issue is the ability to change their compensation model. Why make them an employee is at the end of the day, you just want to pay them. I am not a proponent of the employee model. I think we always got to look at it, but I don't think it's the way to go. There's so many state laws around employment. There'll never be any consistency. The only way there's consistency is if the federal government would say, this is the model across the country for student athletes in the employment category, like Title IX, that type of federal law.
You were co-leader of the NCAA committee that began looking into NIL, in 2020, and you have seen this process play through. It's evolving now. In your role as athletic director at Ohio State, what has the department tried to do to educate the athletes in this type of environment? I think about financial literacy and taxes.
Taxes, man. Taxes. I'll tell you, Todd, I remember, I think it was May of 21 before NIL was actually activated. I had a meeting with the football team and the parents were on Zoom and talked to them about, don't worry about the NCAA, worry about the IRS. and none of them had ever paid taxes. And, they're dependents on their parents' taxes, right? So,
I know that as a father.
Exactly right. So this was the conversation. It's like if you do a deal and they pay you in gross, you need to make sure that you're holding something back to pay your taxes. Otherwise, you're putting a burden on your parents. So if you stay a dependent, right, because the parents have that decision to make, well, based on what you're earning, you're going alone. So all that education, the financial literacy, I listened to Malcolm Jenkins talk to our football team last week, and he talked about the strategy of saving something, even when you're in college. You don't let money live your life. You live your life and save as much as you can. And that was a great lesson for our kids.
Perhaps we'll see football just be its own entity, away from the other college sports.
Yeah, I hope not.
With a governing body of
it's possible.
Football.
Yeah, I see. There's two things in that statement. I can see a governing body for football. I would hope that it wouldn't separate itself. Cody Simon from our football team 2 weeks ago was at a men's gymnastics meet, whenever spring break was, and he was there supporting some of the gymnasts that he knew. And, he went down on the floor afterwards with me to celebrate their win. And I can give you like countless stories about that. And so it's athletes supporting athletes, it's Buckeyes supporting Buckeyes. And if you separate football away from that, they don't get an opportunity to see some of the exemplar performances by other athletes in other sports.
Because again, Ohio State has more than 1,000 athletes,
It's
student athletes in all these different
unbelievable.
sports.
Just think back, Todd, to when Kyle Snyder was here. I mean, a gold medal guy. And he came back his last year and he brought his gold medal. And, the football guys were like, oh my God, that's Kyle Snyder. Right? I mean, that's to me, that's so cool. So I hope that we don't create an environment where they're separated and they don't have that integration and they lose that ability to be inspired by other athletes who are just great at what they do.
Because it always gets back to the student athlete.
The bottom line. That's why you have whatever model we have has to be tethered to education, has to be tethered to our developmental life skills programming. I hope there's no separation. There is obviously already a separation. We know that. Football's here. But physically, if you go to the Woody Hayes Athletic Facility to the Shoemaker that's attached, you see the integration. You see the interaction. You see football guys talking to softball players because softball players are inside hitting the ball. I mean, you see those things, and that's beautiful.
All right, Gene, I see you all the time at sporting events over the years. Suit and tie, you're representing Ohio State, you're in official capacity. Your retirement, you're going to be able to go and watch the Buckeyes or attend the game. Are you even capable of just relaxing and being a fan?
Yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to it. When my wife and I are moving to Arizona, our family's largely on the West Coast, and I've already have in my head that I'm gonna go up to see the football team when it goes out to play Oregon, because it's on the West Coast. Well, I wonder what that's really like to actually go to a tailgate and drink a beer. But I've been a fan as the athletic director everywhere I've been. It's just a controlled fandom. Except that time when I lost myself up at that team up north on the sideline. I am looking forward to just relaxing, knowing that I won't have to deal with what happens afterwards. Just the emotional stress of, even in a win, the emotional stress around that. People don't understand even in a win. I won't have to worry about if the students are going to storm the field. I won't.
It sounds to me, Gene, like it's the difference between being a parent and a grandparent.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. Well put, Todd. Yeah, it's just like I can't wait. I'm going to be out in the West with 7 of my grandkids. I'm going to spoil them to death. And then I'm going to send them home. Well said.
Well, Gene, I'm really happy for you to be able to go spend that time with the grandchildren and go enjoy a Buckeye game as a fan.
Yeah. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. This has been an enjoyable interview, and I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed my time at Ohio State. People have been phenomenal. I'm going to miss a lot of them. So thank you.
We all can make a positive difference, each and every one of us. Gene Smith certainly has done so for Ohio State for the past 19 years, and he's done it by empowering the people around him. He's listened to others, learned from their perspectives, and led the Buckeyes through a few tough valleys and up to the summit of many unforgettable peaks. Looking at all the championship banners, all the student athletes with degrees, they're proof Gene Smith is now a name forever synonymous with Ohio State athletics. Even though he's the first to say, it's not about him. It's about our community. Me, you, us, together. Now at Ohio State is produced by The Ohio State University's Office of Marketing and Communications. For more information, visit us at go.osu.edu/now. I'm your host, Amanda DeJong. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.